lot of brands because, and I'm a brand guy. I've been working in brands for 30 years, but sometimes you have to let it go. Like you just said, this is completely different. This content creator is going to get you sales through their style. If you don't like their personality, don't work with them.
Lunch with them, lunch with them, lunch with them, lunch with them.
Hey everyone, this is Norm Farrar, aka the Beard Guy here, and welcome to another Lunch with Norm, the e-commerce and Amazon FBA podcast. Today we're going to be talking about something close to my heart. If any of you have been listening, you know how I feel about influencer marketing. So we're going to be talking about shrink your ad cost with influencer paid social. We're also going to be talking about how to shrink your ad campaigns by about 20%, how to set all-time high sales records. No, not putting us up on a pedestal there. I'm putting my guest on a pedestal there. And what makes influencer marketing stickier than other channels. So welcome to another Lunch with Norm, the e-commerce and Amazon FBA podcast. Influencer marketing. It's all the rage. So today we're going to be talking about shrinking your ad costs with influencer paid social. Our guest is a CEO of the Outloud Group, and influencer marketing industry's most trusted agency. He has a team that's worked with hundreds of 8- and 9-figure brands, and in the past, he's worked as a former management consultant and active business builder. I'm talking about Brad Hoos, first-time guest. But before we get to Brad, let's have a word from our sponsor. Launching products isn't like it used to be. To successfully launch your product, you need to hit that algorithm from all sides. Driving external sales, boosting social signals, and increasing product listing engagement are fundamental to success. Rebate is the first and only launch platform that delivers across this broad range. Get your product featured on Amazon.live through Rebate's influencer program. With this service, your product gets instant exposure to large audiences of shoppers and permanent placement on Amazon Influencer Storefront, which drives perpetual sales. Run a sweepstakes campaign on Rebate and connect with shoppers off Amazon. And lastly, drive external sales with tried and true deals campaigns. Visit rebate.com today and get started with your 14-day free trial. And let's welcome our guest. How are you, sir?
Norm, I'm doing great. Thanks. Appreciate you having me on here.
Oh, it's great having you. Now, the nice part about this is that when we repurpose the content, that whole 10-minute spiel will be edited out. So we'll get right to you.
That's no good. That was good spiel. I appreciate listening to you and Kelsey. I know everyone does.
Well, the boy Blunder, he holds up his part.
You bet. Well, hey, we're all a work in progress, right?
We all are. Okay. I didn't have a chance really to talk too much before we got on, but this is what I'm doing, what we're talking about today. And I am not an influencer. I am trying to do it over the next year. I'm saying, look, if I'm an old guy, a 60-year-old guy that doesn't know the first thing about TikTok, that can go out and build up a small influencer base of 100,000 people, you can too. And this is what it will do for you. I think this is perfect timing today, Brad. So why don't we just dive right into it?
Love it. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, very good. So the first thing, I know a lot of people talk about influencer marketing. Can we just break down the sort of the different tiers and where you think people should start at?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. A great place to start. And it's a little bit of a complicated answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, influencer marketing is word of mouth marketing at scale, right? So we take advice, we take recommendations from people that we know, like, and trust. And ultimately, influencers are people that we have chosen to trust for whatever reason. Generally, it's because they have some domain expertise in a specific area. And then what happens, and I could nerd out on this pretty quickly into the psychological realm, but is we extend our trust for that individual outside of their area of domain expertise, right? It's called the halo effect in psychology. So, for instance, I have a doctor friend who's a fantastic doctor, and I find people asking him investment questions, and I sort of chuckle to myself because, like, well, he's really not qualified to make any advice more than anybody else. Smart guy, so good for him. But we see that with influencers as well. So someone might be, a beauty, a travel influencer, but we take the recommendations in areas outside of that, right? Maybe for a pair of headphones or whatever the case may be. So, influencer marketing is ultimately people who trust. So the question is really, okay, that kind of makes sense, but where do you start? What are the options? Well, first thing is that influencer marketing is not necessarily the place I would recommend starting if you're a brand new brand, right? So we definitely recommend folks optimizing your owned and operated first, and then sort of the low hanging fruit. So make sure you're optimizing for SEO content, and make sure your paid social game is tight and you're in a good spot. And generally speaking, once you see those two areas start to plateau and you're challenged, well, you're in a spot where you really need to build the brand a little bit more. And this is an area where influencers can help you. And I want to be clear, they're not just helping you with branding, but they're also absolutely helping you with conversion. But that's really kind of once you're at that point. And so the realm of things that influencer can cover is pretty vast, right? I mean, it's all the things that you would think. Unfortunately, people still think of influencer as sort of static images on Instagram, but it's so much more than that, right? It's YouTube. It is all the things on Instagram. I mean, as a tangent, what is Instagram, by the way? You have stories, you have static posts, you have videos, you have carousels, you have reels. Like, what? I don't know. There's a lot of different pieces of Instagram, and then there's paid and there's organic on Instagram. We certainly do a bunch of work on YouTube and podcasts, and there's a lot.
Right.
So ultimately, where you start depends on a fundamental question, and I think marketers know they need to ask, but sometimes we have a hard time remembering that we need to actually answer it too. And that is ultimately, well, what does good look like? What are you trying to achieve? And so depending on your answer to that question, because influencer is inherently a full funnel program, but some areas of influencer skew more branding and some skew more performance or conversion based, we're going to try to recommend where you should be based upon what it is that you're trying to achieve. So Norm, there's a lot to influencer marketing. I don't want to give a squishy answer, but I think where you want to go really depends on what you want to achieve. And so that it's that really understanding the answer to that question is really truly the starting point for any influencer work you might do.
Okay. I mentioned this during the intro, and we talk about influencer marketing. Now, you said at the beginning, you probably, when you're launching your product, you wouldn't go down that route. But once you get more established, you mentioned that influencer marketing is more stickier than other channels. Why is that?
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think that's something that we're still trying to get smarter about as well. But we work with a whole bunch of big brands, a lot of recurring revenue brands, and the message that we continue to hear is that the lifetime value from influencers is higher than it is through other conversion channels. And I think the reason is that when a consumer decides to make a purchase based upon the advice of someone that's trusted, they really believe in it at the onsite, right? You're starting with trust, and when you start with trust, I think people are already convinced that this is a good product or service. Whereas if you're just doing it based on a paid ad or search, you're like, okay, well, I'm going to give this a shot. Clearly, someone's made a purchase, but they're maybe not willing to give the benefit of the doubt. Or if an influencer has followers that are part of the community, and that community continues to see that influencer use that product over and over, there's something that's reinforcing and consuming that content that says, oh, this product is something that those of us who are part of this tribe continue to use. And so as part of that, I think that ultimately it stems from trust, right? When done right, creators' audience really trusts them, and that trust turns into being stickier customers of a brand that's recommended by that creator.
Yeah, interesting. You're saying this because one of the things I'm trying to do, and you've nailed it, is trying to figure out what's going to click. So if I use this title, or if I use this color, if I use, and I'm trying to say, okay, here's what I can do each day, and if it works, I'm going to see engagement. And what's been happening is that's been happening. I've seen, okay, I nailed it. Okay, the next time it's like nothing. And then you go back and you get a few more extra views. And I'm just experimenting. So, and I'm just using me as an example, but I guess you really have to get a feel, if you're a good influencer, of what can sell and how you can make those products sell. Because, man, I'm long-winded. There's so many influencers out there that I've been looking at that put on a good show that make no sales. I can tell that they will not make a sale. Have you seen that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you nailed it about the experimenting. Now, like from a creator perspective, so hey, I'm in the Midwest in the States. You're from Toronto, right? So like here in Detroit, I'll use one of my favorite analogies. When your car is stuck in the snow, you might know you need to go east, but it doesn't really matter what direction you want to go. You just need to start trying to rock your car to get some movements. You might be rocking it north and south, right? Don't worry about you need to go east. You just need to get some traction and get some movement on that car. And then once you're actually moving, now you can reorient and figure out, okay, I need to go east. How do I do that? So yeah, with influencer, it is so hard to be able to put your finger on exactly what it is about certain creators that people trust and then take action on, and what others don't, because it's different for creators than it is a brand. And what I mean by
Right.
that is so many really, really smart folks that we work with in brands have spent a lot of times years, sometimes decades, developing a brand voice, right? Here's the words you need to use. Here's our level of excitement. Here's our pentameter. Here's the colors, if that's involved. And when you use influencers, you need to throw all that stuff out the window, because these are brand advocates. They're not trying to parrot your brand voice. There's a big difference, right? Brand advocates, brand voice. And so as advocates, they could use a totally different style. And what works for creator A isn't going to work for creator B or creator C. And you sort of, this sounds silly, like, but you need to figure out who you are as a creator as you're going along, because we all have different facets to ourselves. So it's not like anyone's putting on a show, but you need to figure out, how you can come across by showing that element of who you truly are. And I think that's the part that's hard for creators early on.
And it's hard for brands to understand that, especially larger brands. I know that. Do you know Wilfred Lightheart?
Yeah, sure do.
Okay, so Wilfred and I used to be in business together, and we had this company, Digital Blacksmiths. So he's continuing on with Digital Blacksmiths. He's an awesome guy. But one of the things that came up time and time and time again is that he would go take on the social media account and be seeing results. But what would the brand say? Oh, like maybe it's a meme or something like that, but it's not our brand voice. Oh, it's not, it doesn't carry the brand, but you're getting results. Like, let it go. No, we can't do that. And unbelievable the fight and the struggle you have with a lot of brands, because, and I'm a brand guy. I've been working in brands for 30 years, but sometimes you have to let it go. Like you just said, this is completely different. This content creator is going to get you sales through their style. If you don't like their personality, don't work with them. So anyways, and that's the same on social. It is and it isn't. It depends. If you're going on to social media and it's specific to the brand, and they want to continue with their brand story, their brand culture, they might not let you play around. A lot of
Right.
brands will not let you do that.
That's right.
But if you're on a different social media account, driving traffic over to it, like what we used to do is build up communities and groups, that's a whole different ballgame. So I don't want to get that mixed up. But anyways, of course, we went down a different rabbit hole.
No, it's honestly so important. And I mean, we spend so much of our time, energy, and effort as an influencer agency sort of guarding brands against their worst initial first instincts, which is to say, well, they're not talking with excitement, right? The lighting's not quite right, and it's like, oh, okay, that's the way it works for them. So I think one of the key tests for any brand that wants to be successful in influencer marketing, and I think a lot of forms of marketing these days, is, are you willing to let go, right? Let your kid ride that bike without you hanging on. And if yes, really, really good things can happen. And if not, that's okay. You just need to be aware of that up front in terms of trying to figure out what your right strategy should be for marketing your product or service.
And again, you nailed it. When we started doing this, and a lot of this is about this challenge that I'm doing, is perfect subject for it. But I was trying to do a Hollywood production every time. So my son looks at it and goes, "What are you doing?" Like, and especially for shoppable videos, just show your hands. Just show, your big hands in there pointing to things. You don't have to make it a Hollywood. It's one take. It's one take, Dad. And we changed that format. And off the first video we did, all of a sudden we were getting on. This is on Amazon now. A ton of traffic. Like we got on their listing, they accepted it. It wasn't my face, my face is for radio, and he told me that. And all I use is my fingers and I point, and I got a script, and I try to make it a bit humorous, but at the same time informative. That's what ended up working for us. No more Hollywood productions.
Make TikToks, not ads, is what they like to say.
And my TikToks take very little time, as you can probably say. They're really bad. Maybe that's why I get such a low following right now. But let's talk about that, the following. You can have a huge following, and you as a brand, maybe you're not familiar with this, and you think, wow, this person has 1 million followers, or 100,000 or 500,000 followers. They got to be good. Well, how can you tell if this is, I tell people, like, if it's not your personality, if you don't want to work with an influencer because of that, don't. But how can you tell if the person's fake, or just a bad influencer, or somebody who's just gaming the system?
Yeah, for sure. So I think what you're touching upon is more like fraudulence, right? Like, hey,
Yeah.
who's real? Who's got the fake followers? So there's a ton of different tools that are out there that allow you to take a look at things, and just you're taking a few extra minutes and taking a look at their engagement rate. Hey, does this make sense? This person, has 1 million followers and is getting 5, engagements on a post, right? Just take a look at that. And we have, as an agency, we have a little bit more sophisticated tools where we can see, hey, were there big spikes in follower count that happen? And sometimes that's from a video, but other times it's from buying followers during a certain period of time. So the way we do things, again, this I think just dig into it a little bit more. If you don't have access to these tools, spend a little bit more time. And for us as an agency, we certainly are looking at creators' track record of performance. Like, hey, who's delivered well for a brand? Because the second we have proof and data that shows, hey, this audience goes to the website and makes purchases, at that point, we kind of don't care about what I eloquently call BS engagement metrics, like shares and comments, because that stuff doesn't really matter to a brand that's looking to partner with influencers. But once you have that data, you're certainly in good shape. But yeah, out of the jump, I'd say, put on your skeptic hat, look at some of the numbers, and get a decent sense for, does this feel like this is an organic audience that's truly engaged? And honestly, in most cases it is. So I think, we don't want to have your first experience or your second experience in influencer be where you're kind of getting hoodwinked a little bit. But you do want to do that extra diligence to try to make sure you have a good sense that indeed the creator's audience is real and authentic.
Right. And the influencer, when you're hiring an influencer, it's not necessarily just to get sales. So you might hire an influencer to be more with brand awareness, so you get impressions rather than sales. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, from my perspective, influencer marketing is truly a full funnel program. So there's value in awareness, consideration, conversion. Happy to nerd out and go deeper into any of those. But you can be successful running an influencer campaign across any or all of those buckets. So it's really important to clarify upfront. Again, like, not to be a broken record, but what does good look like to you? What are you trying to achieve?
Great. Okay. Now that we have that established, how do you ensure that you pick the right influencer to work with you?
Yeah. So um, ultimately, there's an art and a science to this. Um, so the art is ultimately, hey, does this look like a creator that we would feel good about representing us as a brand? And I think that matters, right? So there is a difference between brand advocacy and brand voice, but you need to pick the right advocates for you as well. So I think that art exists, and we love to collaborate with brand teams to really understand things and just get as much information as humanly possible about brands. And then on the science side, I think this is an area that the marketplace needs to continue to improve. And so what we do as an influencer agency that's been around for over 15 years, which definitely makes us one of the OGs in the influencer world, is we're looking at all the data we have from historical performance between creators and brands. And so we have a treasure trove of information that says, oh, these creators that are targeting a XYZ demographic have performed really, really well historically for conversion campaigns, right? And so then we're making recommendations based upon historical performance, because we believe historical data is the best indicator of future performance. It's no guarantee, of course, but we're really, really looking for that. And so that's the way we're able to sort of systematize these things. And I think if you don't have this information, or frankly, if you do, the approach is pretty similar. And this is the approach we take. This is the approach I would take to someone if they were just doing this on their own. Is let's start with a small set of influencers, but that are big enough to actually have some insight. So somewhere in the range of 6 to 10 creators, and be really purposeful about the creators that you're working with. Maybe they're across, 2 verticals. So it might be outdoors creators and car creators, for instance. And look, let those creators run, do their thing for the brand, and then look at the data and understand who worked, who didn't. And in most cases, you're going to have a few creators who work really, really well, a few creators that don't work at all for the brand, and then a few right in the middle as well. They're like, man, we saw some signal, but not great. And what you want to say is, okay, what are the common themes that we see from the creators who worked really well? And are there any common themes that we can identify? And let's go to that second wave of testing. And now we want to test with more creators that are like those creators that performed well for us early on. Or maybe there's a lot of noise, we can't tell, but what we can say is that, this segment of creators did not work well. So we do not want creators who look like this. And then we just want to continue to build and iterate. And so for us, as we're running really significant campaigns for brands, we're still always in this test and learn approach, right? Where we've got creators that have worked well, then we move into long-term relationships, long-term deals between those creators and brands. And then we're, in theory, continuing to get much smarter on our testing as well. And so we can ramp up the testing or the performance as it makes sense for the brand.
All right. So it is the bottom of the hour. We've got to cut the podcast a little short today, but when we get back, we're going to be talking about how to shrink your ad spend or your ad campaign by about 20%. We're also going to be talking about how to increase, I'm going to say it, all-time high sales records through influencer gaming campaigns. And we're also going to talk about how influencer marketing acquires customers with 15% higher LTV. So first, if you're first time listening to the podcast, we're going to go, if you want to enter our giveaway today, it's called #lunch with Norm, #Wheel of Kelsey, and tag 2 people, you get a second entry. Brad, why don't you tell everybody what the giveaway is today?
Sure. Yeah. So, as an influencer agency, we're working with, constantly with brands to help grow and scale their influencer campaigns. So, we will be happy to chat with the winner of today's campaign for 1 hour to talk about whatever you'd like related to helping set your influencer strategy, plan, tactics, whatever's on your mind. We are here as to be as helpful as possible for an hour together.
That's awesome. All right. So hashtag Wheel of Kelsey, tag two people. You get a second entry. Kelsey, do your job. Hit that button. We're going to commercial. I want to give a quick shout out to an incredible group of sponsors to help keep this podcast running. The Lunch with Norm podcast would not be possible without the support of the following sponsors: Post Purchase Pro, Clear Ads, Jeff Schick Law, Rebate.com, Honu Worldwide, Digital Blacksmiths, Netfluence, Extreme Power, and Startup Club. Now back to the show. And don't forget VAA, our newest sponsor. Okay, so let's get into this. Is going to be, I want to hear this. How to shrink your ad campaigns by 20% with influencer paid social.
Yeah, so for sure. So that definitely is something that we've seen happen for a number of our brands. But I'm a bigger fan of under promise, over deliver. Here's basically the simple strategy is that when you're talking about using influencers, we want to look at all the different ways we can use that content and be smart about it, right? How do we stretch that content out? How do we repurpose it, replatform it, whatever it is? Ultimately, we want to have a piece of content and figure out ways to use it. And so, for us, one of the things that we've seen successful, I mentioned earlier, first make sure you get your paid social campaigns up and running, is that influencers can help optimize paid social campaigns. And here's how this is done. Some of you may be familiar with the term whitelisting. For a lot of reasons, it's not a term that Facebook uses anymore. So we call it influencer paid social. And so we partner together with brands to get content from creators that's generally speaking paid first, but it can be repurposing ads, repurposing content from YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, whatever the case may be. So we get this content from creators, and then we will create about 6 different variations of that content. So we will change the aspect ratio of the video, we will change the sound, we will change the start time, we will change the text overlays, and then we push out the ad content not from the brand's account, but from the creator's account. And so in the back end, we are linking together the brand's account together with the creator's account. We'll install Pixel, we'll assign we'll assign a UTM link, all the standard things. And ultimately we're running campaigns that are being pushed out from the creator's handle. And the brand is the one putting the dollars behind it. But as you're scrolling through whatever platform, let's just say Meta, so whether it's Instagram or Facebook, it's showing up as something coming from the creator. But you as a brand are able to control that, and you're able to direct it to your site. And what we've seen repeatedly is that, yes, indeed, we are able to further optimize those campaigns relative to brand paid social by somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20%. And I think so much of that comes down to just the trust that comes from not being sold to, but from having someone that like and trust, or that just looks interesting to you, advertise from that. Because I say both of those because we would certainly, this gets into the details quickly here, Norm, so wave me off if you want to stop here. But in general, we would start by targeting the audience of the creator, right? So a creator has 100,000 followers. We're targeting those 100,000 people. So the second step is we're targeting lookalikes of those 100,000 people. Then the third thing we're going to do is we're going to target the audience that the brand account has already developed. And the fourth thing we're doing is we're targeting likes and interest of folks who are similar to that creator. And so what happens over time is we're able to find the right audiences that are effective. And then even better yet, we're developing new audiences. So brand folks that are running brand accounts love this approach, because now I have a new audience for me to push out for ads coming from my brand account as well. So we've seen influencer paid social be really, really effective. It's certainly important to make sure you get the content right as part of this, and working with the right creators to do that. That's something that's easy to say and harder to do, because you are now doing third-party advocacy through the creators as opposed to brand advocacy coming from directly from your account. So that's something you need to be aware of. But yeah, we're seeing really, really good returns in the influencer paid social these days.
And you can leverage this, which kind of left leading to my next question about how do you set these all-time high sales records with influencer gaming campaigns?
Yeah, so gaming is interesting, right? So it's a totally different approach with gaming, but gamers, in general, right? So I'm gonna, gaming isn't gaming. My goodness, there's games that are targeting older demographics, League of Legends or Call of Duty, and there's games that are targeting a younger demographic, like Fortnite, for instance, and there's everything in between as well. So, talking in gaming as a whole, because it's so big, is a little bit tricky. But what we've found really good success with, because this is a group that you can't reach through traditional mediums, right? These in general folks who are not watching TV. They're deep into Reddit and Twitch, and kind of don't really enjoy consuming mainstream content. So for so many brands, this is an incremental audience for those brands. And for a long time, I would argue most brands still today, they just don't understand gamers. And so it's a group that has sometimes felt marginalized or at least missed. And so brands will go and be like, "Hey, gamers, do this or that," and immediately you've lost gamers, right? And so with the gaming audience, you really, really need to figure out a way to engage with the audience with something that they actually care about. And so I think over time, this comes to make sense, right? So engaging with the streamers that they really actually care about, the teams, meaning the esports teams, the competitive part of gaming, and then really figuring out a way to give back. So giving back, a lot of folks deep in gaming really care about, helping to support their favorite esports team or the streamers that they consume. I mean, it's really inherent in Twitch, where people are, giving dollars to people. That's how you say, thank you on Twitch. So where we've seen success is, getting creative. So basically saying, okay, we have to first establish a presence. So it's, League of Legends, right? You have to have a presence and be there repeatedly. And then if you're able to add value where someone is able to get something in the game, right, or in the surrounding community, that's where we've seen really, really, good success. Is like, hey, make this purchase, and then you'll get, this sword, this protector, this whatever the case may be. An example of that is something that we did last year for the Game Awards. So Game Awards is kind of like the Oscars and the Emmys, except way bigger. It's almost 10x bigger than the Oscars, the Emmys in terms of viewership. And Final Fantasy 14, this new game was coming, or a new version of this game had come out, and basically together we ran a campaign where if you ordered Grubhub, you were able to get an emote. So basically, like your character could eat a pizza slice in the game. Then you'd get that, and people went crazy for it. People were really, really excited about that. You can still buy them now a year later on eBay for hundreds of dollars, because that was something that was of value inside of the community. And so, gaming is, I think, a little bit more complicated because it does take more of a commitment to really, really show that audience that you are part of them and understand the community. But once you've really, really done that, there's just huge upside, because it's sort of like the one of us sort of mentality that exists there.
I remember I interviewed this CEO of the largest esports company in the world, and I felt like an idiot when I started talking to him, because I thought, esports is like John Madden, and so he said no. So he explained to me esports, and he starts telling me about these huge events that happen, in the gaming community that fill stadiums. And I'm sitting there going, I'm so far removed. I had no idea that this existed. I mean, there's stadiums made just for esports. It's crazy. But anyways, that's me. I'm an old guy.
No, it's true. I was at both Madison Square Garden and the United Center, just packed arenas within the last year. At different esports events. I mean, they draw a huge loyal crowd. It's one of the fastest growing areas out there. So marketers that are looking to hop on the train for something that's high growth, I think this is a great area to hitch your wagons to as well.
So I see that we have about 12 minutes left. Last question from me is you were mentioning, this is pre-interview, but how influencer marketing can acquires customers with 15% higher lifetime value. So why don't we touch on that?
Yeah. And so this is something I think we got a chance to chat about a little bit as well. And the reason behind that is the lifetime value is that people trust influencers. And when you have trust involved, they tend to stick around longer, or maybe they have a little bit more forgiveness when there's a hiccup as a brand. And to be honest with you, this is something that we're still trying to do some research to figure out the exact whys and wherefores. But this 15% is a number that keeps coming up across brand partners that we work with. So it's basically looking at, the retention of someone that comes in through an influencer channel versus, the average non-influencer channel for the brand. And we're seeing that those customers stick around longer. And a lot of times I think, influencers take the time to explain a product as well and show a use case, not just, tell its functions and features, but get a chance to really explain, why it works and why it's helpful for them. And that's something that's really powerful. So, so often, we're looking at things in the here and now, right? How are we doing in terms of our ROI or ROAS, right? Or marketing efficiency ratio, whatever we're looking at, we're looking at for this month. And so I think where influencer really starts to shine is over time, as well, when you allow some of these brand advocacy pieces to show out and those customers continue to stick around with the brand. So that's one of the pieces of influencer that's really powerful, but you're not going to really get a chance to see and appreciate unless you have some stick-to-itiveness with that campaign over time.
Very good. So Kelsey, why don't we go to the couple of questions that we have?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, from Spencer. Do blogs which are not forward-facing still have the same effect as Instagram and TikTok influencers who are forward-facing?
Yeah, so let me make sure I'm understanding this. So when I say not forward-facing, is that I'll assume that means because you don't have a face associated with that, you don't necessarily have an influencer. So there's more of just like a blog that's well respected and trusted for content, but not a person behind it. So that's kind of, Spencer, my understanding of the question. If I'm wrong, let me know, and happy to better address the question. But I think one of the things that we've seen within the influencer world, and I'll just pick on YouTube for a moment, is that creators who do show their face consistently on camera have better conversion numbers. So there's more trust that happens when you truly know and understand the person that's behind things. So in general, I think you're not going to see as strong of conversion reliably when it's sort of faceless. That said, I mean, there's definitely ways that you can be very effective by running these sorts of campaigns with bloggers. We've seen it, but on average, you're going to have more effectiveness when there's a face behind the content and the advocacy.
Oh, what about a face for radio like mine?
Well, what's funny, Norm, is that influencer marketing has been around for a very long time, and what I like to harken back to is indeed radio. Hey, this is Bob from WXYZ. I was at Village Grill last night and had a fantastic burger with Bob the bartender. Why don't you go on to Village Grill and get yourself a beer and a burger? Tell Bob I sent you, right? That's been around for a long time.
You're right. Saul Corman in Canada. Yep. Anybody from Toronto knows Saul Corman on the Danforth.
All right. And yeah, Spencer, he said that's exactly what I meant. So
All right.
perfect.
Right on.
Okay. And our last question is from Luke. How do you utilize the content creator's account to repost the content without the creator being the one to do it?
Short. Well, two answers. The flippant answer is you don't. And what I
Unless
mean
you
by
have
that,
permission, right?
that's exactly the second part of the question. So yeah, creators have to give that permission to you to be able to be behind it. Certainly, you're gonna have to compensate those creators one way or another, because you're basically saying, hey, that audience that you just built from 0 to 100,000 and spent a whole bunch of time doing and went through all those challenges and rabbit trails along the way. Like, hey, I want to use that now. So yeah, you do have to set it up in the back end, but you've got to get the creator permission. And certainly, at that stage with a brand account, you could run it from an agency directly from the brand. The creator could actually run it in 99.9% of cases. That's not what you would want to do, because creators are excellent at developing content, not necessarily running paid social campaigns. But yeah, you need to get the creator's permission first as part of that.
And it's so important. First of all, it will cost you a lot more if you get a letter in the mail, saying that you didn't have that permission. I've seen that happen or heard about that happening to some people. Secondly, this is how they make their living. So some people don't want to pay that little bit extra for that because, it only took 30 seconds or it's only 30 seconds. But yes, it's like paying, a consultant. You can pay a consultant $1,000, $5,000. The reason you do it is because they can get the job done for the most part. And that's the same with a content creator. So do not, and I can't stress this enough. We've had a couple of creators on, big creators, or influencers on here, and they found their information on the person's social site or on their website. And anyways, I know one that went after the person for it, and for a lot of money.
For those TikTok ads, are you talking specifically about the Spark ads that you can run through?
Yes. So the way we see things inside of TikTok are three options, right? Option number one, creator can post from their organic account, right? Now, the downfall of creator posting from their organic account is you can't have a swipe up or a clickable link inside of TikTok. So from a brand, you certainly can still do things from a brand awareness and a branding perspective, but there's no sort of mid and lower funnel options. And then the second option is doing Spark ads. So it's basically saying, hey, take one piece of content and boost it. And then you can do the swipe up / clickable link. You can, dial in it to specific demographics, which is great. And then the third thing, which we still consider to be influencer paid social, is, taking that one piece of content and doing, 6-ish versions of it to see which is performing the most effective. So it still is boosting content, but you wouldn't even need the creator to go live on their account with these. And so you're really taking the creativity and then layering on the ability to test and learn and algorithmically see, hey, is this color better than the other? What if we start here? What if the text overlay says something smaller and simpler? So there's different things that you can test. So again, organic, Spark ads, and then influencer paid social is sort of the three ways that we think of things inside of TikTok.
Okay, very good. We're going to get you out of here on time. How's that? And by the way, I do want to talk to you after the podcast. I'll reach out to you a bit later on when you have more time. But if people have any questions, how do they reach your agency?
Yeah, probably the easiest way is just to go ahead and check out our website, outloudgroup.com. Not Outland. People, for some reason, love to transpose those two. So outloudgroup.com, or shoot me an email, brad@outloudgroup.com, if you want to get in touch with me.
I got to get back on the podcast. I had a great time talking with you.
Yeah, thanks, Norm. Really, really appreciate it. Fun chopping it up with you and Kelsey here as well.
All right, so we got enough time to do the Wheel of Kelsey. I can't hear you, Kels. Be professional.
We'll throw it on.
There you go.
We'll throw it on over to the a quick sponsor, and then we'll get to the Wheel of Kelsey.
Okay. I want to thank Jeff Schick Legal for sponsoring this episode of Lunch with Norm. You've probably heard on the podcast about Amazon suspensions. They're very real. It can happen at any time. And when it does happen, how do you get out of it? How does the little guy like you and me get out of these suspensions without paying an arm and a leg in legal fees? This is where Jeff Schick Legal is here to help. For a very low monthly retainer, for only $89, get access to Amazon attorney Jeff Schick. That's right. You can sit back, relax, enjoy that cup of coffee while listening to the Lunch with Norm podcast, knowing that you have an advocate and a partner in your business success. But wait, just mention Lunch with Norm and receive 50% off the first 2 months. Get the protection you need and visit jeffschick.com today. That's JEFFSCHICK.com. Now let's get back to the show. Okay.
All right. So let's go to the Wheel of Kelsey and we'll see who today's winner is.
It's time for the Wheel of Kelsey.
Did you get Simon's in there?
I did. He's
All
snuck
right.
in. So we got Simon all added in. Thank you, everyone who entered today's Wheel of Kelsey. I'll spin this right now. If
It's
you
a
are the
great
winner,
prize.
please email me, kate@lunchwithnorm.com. And it looks like Chuck is the winner.
All right, Chuck.
Congratulations. So that is kate@lunchwithnorm.com. Reach out to me and we'll connect you with your prize. And I saw, Brad, your Outloud group, you've got some pretty big names that you've worked with in the past with, I see Policy Genius, Athletic Greens, Growpub. And those are a lot of the companies that I see on podcasts when I'm watching that they really get like the most reach possible. So that's, yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you. No, appreciate it. We're really lucky to work with a bunch of great partners. So we're grateful for that.
Awesome.
All right, Brad. Well, thanks again for coming on. I do want to reach out to you a bit later on, but anyways, hopefully we can get you back on the podcast for another really great session, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Norm. Really appreciate it. Great being on, and would love to come on again in the future. You have a great one as well.
Want more great information? Don't forget to subscribe by clicking here. Also, if you want to check out our latest podcasts, click over here.
Lunch with Norm.